Good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee. Welcome to Community Conversations. We're here every Wednesday evening and talking about issues that are important to all of us here in Rhode Island. Tonight's show is no different, and our broadcast tonight is no different. So we welcome everybody who's listening in, and welcome everybody who will see this broadcast on video tape going to our website, Daniel McKee website. So thank you so much for being here, and good evening to Stephen. Thank you for joining in. Tonight we're going to the first part of the show, very important part of the show. You know, this is considered LGBTQ Pride Month, and we're here to recognize and to certainly talk about the issues that the community, the LGBTQ community, are involved in. It also marks the 50-year anniversary of the 1969 Stonewall Uprising. We're going to hear about that. And since that time, over the last many years, Rhode Island Pride hosts a Pride Fest in the city of Providence in particular. And I've been fortunate to be able to walk in that parade, and what an energy that does provide. And so we're very pleased to have some of our leaders here tonight, and I wanted to bring them on if we could. Ben, bring on Anthony DeRose. He's the chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Party's LGBTQ caucus. Anthony, and I see you're looking like you're shaved, and I do have that $100 check. It's right on my desk here. I just have not been able to mail it out yet. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, great to have you here. And Bill Kepner. He's the Deputy Chief of Staff Communications for the Providence City Council. Bill, thank you for being here tonight. It's always good to see you, and looking forward to the conversation that we have tonight. And Ricky Irizarry, help me with that.
Irizarry.
I had it right first time. Great.
Yes.
Black lady and community activist. Thank you so much for being here, Ricky.
Thank you for having me, Lieutenant.
Blinky, right, Tina? Is that pronounced correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. And Tina's Vice President, Community Outreach of RI Pride. And finally, we have Ray Chirico. He's President of RI Pride. And so thank you all for being here tonight. What I normally like to do is just have everybody introduce themselves, a little bit about their background, not only in RI Pride, but also, as contributing, citizens in the state of Rhode Island, and very important to our state in many, many different ways in your capacity. So kind of give a little overview of that, and then we want to get into the discussion that has to do with how COVID-19 is impacting the community that you represent, and also it kind of robbed us of a great celebration too, right? So that in terms of making sure that the state of Rhode Island shows its RI Pride with the events that happen in Providence. But let's start with Anthony. Anthony, just give a little overview of yourself, of the things that you work on, and also give it a little introduction of the work you do as the in the RI the Pride community.
Sure. So for those who don't know me, my name is Anthony DeRose. I am the chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Party's LGBTQ caucus. I'm actually the founding chair, having served as chair for the past 8 years. We are the branch of the Democratic Party here in Rhode Island, as well as the DNC, that serves to do our best to make sure that LGBT representation is brought upon in all parts of the Democratic Party platform, and also here in the state. We are a small number. We are always looking to grow, and so we will certainly be focusing a lot on that as we start gearing up for November. The lieutenant and I actually just got off a phone call for the Biden leadership team, so we're gearing up for that. But in my everyday, I actually work in the medicine field. I am an operations coordinator for a primary care practice. So I've been on the front lines during the COVID pandemic, and also have been a performer, a drag performer here in the state of Rhode Island for the past 13 years, having entertained here and in various parts across the country. So.
Well, welcome, Anthony. Thanks for that introduction, and we're going to get back to a discussion about the COVID-19, how it's impacted the whole state, how it's impacted the communities that you're here representing as well, and also as I said, that this is the Pride Month, and for the LGBTQ community, and that's why we have you here tonight, so that you can kind of make sure that people know about it. We're not as visible this year in many ways, but Billy, give us a little introduction about yourself and the work you do, representing the Providence City Council, and also in terms of your activity in the RI Pride Month and activities there.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. I'm not native to Rhode Island, but as soon as I came to Providence, felt like home. I lived here for 4 years. I was a trailing spouse. My husband took a job at Brown, and we were at Cornell University before that. I was lucky to land in a job at the city council, and it's been great. And I have a leadership team who welcomes diversity and has really seeked out ways to promote the LGBTQ community. We launched an online exhibit this year, celebrating Pride Month, with people submitting their photos and their stories of how they came to be, and how they came into their own. And I think that was a really important step. And originally it was going to be an in-person exhibit. We were going to have parts of the AIDS quilt, and a lot of other portions of it. So, but like everyone else with COVID, we pivoted, and we quickly put together a website, got submissions, and it's been very, very impactful. And for me, around Pride, I'm a gay man of a certain age, so I'm in my 40s. So I've lived through different eras, and sometimes it feels like we take 3 steps forward, and then you hear some news and it's like you take 5 steps back. And that's been one of the challenges during COVID, especially because we have chosen family as gay people. And we've been separated from our families because we can't be together. And so Pride is very special. Rhode Island and Providence has the best Pride that I've ever been to, and I've been to several.
Yeah, we're going to talk.
I'm just grateful to be here.
Yes,
thank you.
Really, thank you. And we're going to talk about that. Ricky, give us a little overview of your background and how you fit into this RI Pride Month in Rhode Island.
Thank you.
Yes,
sure.
You're welcome.
Well, my name is Ricky Rosari. Excuse me. I have been a part of the Providence community for going on 7 years now. I work in human services, so I've worked in 4 nonprofit organizations for about the past 9 years or so. My most recent position, I was serving individuals with developmental disabilities, like autism, Asperger's, acute brain injury, stuff like that. I too, like Billy, am not native to Providence. However, at the age of 19, I found myself in love with the community and adapted by the community itself. During the COVID pandemic, we were considered essential. So I, was working just like Anthony. However, I also took that time to donate my time with Rhode Island Pride, because a lot of queer communities and other communities didn't have food. They didn't have a way to get food. They didn't have any resources like toilet paper or a way to get toilet paper, stuff like that. So I spent some time there, dropped off some deliveries. And more recently, I actually spent some time with Rhode Island Pride at the Trans Black Lives Matter rally, where I shared a big piece of my life and hoped to open the doors for more resources for our queer community as it relates to abuse and domestic violence.
Yeah, Ricky, welcome aboard, and looking forward to the conversation here. And thank you for sharing that story, because I think it's an important one. And Rhode Island, has a certain, wants to be very inclusive, and I think in most cases we are. Although we're certainly being challenged right now by many factors in the COVID-19, and in terms of the fact that we're highlighting some of the areas that are disproportionately affected, both economically and also in terms of just plain bias. So we want to make sure that we get you front and center here to kind of make sure that you get the voice that you want and the voice that you should have. So Tina, give us a little overview of you and the work that you do as Vice President.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I'm Vice President of Community Outreach over at Rhode Island Pride. So I work with Ray over here. Had worked with Ricky a little bit too during our Resist and Resilience rally that we just had on Saturday. So you know, like Billy, I'm new to Providence as well. So I've been here for about 5 years now. And prior to coming here, my background is as a chemist and a business analyst. And so my background then for our community is working in HIV immunology. Have also been in the community for a while now, a couple decades. And so then I brought that experience, that expertise coming from other Pride boards over to Rhode Island as well. So we've been busy with doing a whole lot of things, and I'll let Ray say some more about the food drive that we've done because he was more involved with that than I was. But I've been really involved in helping us really share our platform with the Black Lives Matter movement, helping them, you know, kind of behind the scenes because we're in it to support our siblings and not in it for the accolades. So kind of helping behind the scenes and sharing information where we could. And then really having a rally and going back to our roots, just like we did in 1976, and recreating that old Pride route and through the city, starting at Cathedral Square like our 76ers did and ending up at the State House in a true rally, going back to, you know, what made Pride what it is today. And also sharing our reforms that we have for Pride by looking inward and seeing how we can change ourselves as an organization. And then also sharing too that wanting to share the voices that we have in our community that don't always get to share their stories. You know, people like Ricky who are able and willing to come and share their stories with us so that we can hear them.
Tina, thank you so much for sharing, and look forward to the rest of this conversation. You know, after I want to talk to Ray about, you know, his background and also, you know, the role that you do play as president of RI Pride, and then I'm going to want to open it up and kind of get everybody's, what's the memory that you have, and why is RI Pride Month important to Rhode Island and also nationally. But Ray, welcome and thank you so much for being here tonight. Please share your background and a little bit about how you became president of this association.
All right. Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for having me. There seems to be a common theme tonight with most of us. We're not from Rhode Island, but we've all chosen to be here, myself included. I started out in Connecticut a very long time ago, and I went to Boston and then finally settled here in Providence. I came out, I went back in the dark ages. It was 1985 when it was very, very different than what it is now. I have been on the board of Rhode Island Pride for about 6 years, president for just a year now. Prior to coming over to Pride, I was the general manager and a board member over at Providence Gay Men's Chorus for about 18 years, which is actually where I met Anthony, I believe, for the first time. He was a member there as well. I have, when I do have free time, which lately seems to be none at all, I'm actually a realtor here in Providence. These last couple of months, as we all know, have been very, very different and very challenging for everyone. Here at Pride, instead of spending our winter working with sponsors and coming up with advertising and PR and entertainment and all those things that we normally do, we actually converted our office into a food warehouse. We had started out with a very small food drive that exploded based on the need of the entire state, not even just our community. We ended up taking in donations and getting some grants, and we ended up feeding about 13,000 people over the course of 10 weeks here just out of our office, loading food in and out of cars. Like Ricky said, he was here helping us as well. He took some deliveries out to folks all over the state. So it was quite amazing. It was very it was great just to see the volunteers show up that were willing to help, that weren't staying home, that didn't need to isolate, that were willing to go out and help other people to make sure that they had everything they needed to survive this.
Well, thanks to your whole crew here for that leadership. I was aware there was a food drive. As Tina said, I didn't realize how it grew, but you know, I think Rhode Island has stepped up in many ways. You know, during this health crisis. You know, I've been working to try to make sure that as we reopen, that the economy gets back to some level where we can sustain ourselves and sustain our families and our communities. But at the moment, I'm glad you shared that story, Ray. And I think that people who are watching this and listen to this, they may want to participate. Is that still an ongoing process right now, or is that something that is has reached its conclusion?
We reached our capacity and shut that down at, around Memorial Day. There was just so many other things that we were planning to do for our regular Pride celebration, which had been reimagined, that we needed to get involved with. Yeah,
well, let's talk about that reimagining right now in terms of, what is, Ray, let's start with you, and then we'll kind of work our way back as we got here. But tell us what that reimagining looks like, and some of the most important things about to you and your organization about RI Pride Month.
Well, for this year, we wanted to make sure that we maintained our essential events, our most visual events, and to get them out to the community virtually, so that people can still feel that they were involved and still had something to look forward to, even though they were mostly stuck at home and couldn't be with their friends at this time. Normally, we get 130,000 or so people downtown for our event every year. So this year we tried to reimagine what that was going to look like online. We had contacted a lot of our regular sponsors and folks that we deal with in the downtown area. We worked on a lighted up theme for some of the hotels and for the city hall, and obviously, the State House always lights up for us. We worked on a signage program. We were going to sell signs for a donation that people can put on their front lawns. We had a procession planned throughout Providence that was going to go and do the old route, do our regular route, and go up and around through some neighborhoods just to show that Pride was still there and that people had something to celebrate. And lots and lots of other events, a lot of drag shows that we had, performers that were doing live feeds. And then unfortunately, there was the murder of George Floyd, and everything changed. Yeah. And suddenly it became not a time to celebrate. So we once again reimagined all of our events, and we changed all of our speeches for all of our flag raisings. I know for myself, my speech changed at least 3 or 4 times before I had to give that because of all the events that were happening. And actually right up until an hour before we went live for that, I had to change my speech again because Title VII was approved, which was actually a great thing that happened. And it was something that everyone was able to celebrate, as opposed to what had happened previously with the Black Lives Matter movement. Yeah, the world has definitely changed, and on top of the COVID-19 and all the impact that it's had on our lives, and disproportionately in some people's lives. So, excuse me, but tell us a little bit, Tina, about your feeling of some of the best things that you've have experienced through RI Pride Month.
Through this month, certainly. So I've seen a community that has come together. It really has. That as a person of color, we experience racism daily. I mean, there's not a day, even in isolation, that it doesn't affect my life. And when I see our Black siblings that are hurting in this time, it really has set us back. There hasn't been any progress. And then looking at the oppression of our community, we haven't achieved much. And so then we see our siblings who are hurting, and that intersectionality between trans Black lives and the Black Lives Matter movement. And we couldn't let that moment go by where we weren't celebrating them and honoring their lives and what they could have been and what they could have been for our movement as well. So to see the community come together and to see voices come out that we haven't heard before, I think that was a beautiful thing. And I hope that we can continue to see our siblings and hear their voices. And I hope that we can celebrate them now and not wait for them to be gone before we understand the importance that they had in our community.
Yeah, I can share that, and that's one of the reasons that we were so looking forward to having everyone on tonight's broadcast, is because we've made a commitment to use this venue to make sure that the voice of the of people who are impacted and those who want to talk about the changes that they want to see, and also the the messages that they want to deliver are, it's another venue to do just that, just like you just did, Tina. So we want to continue doing that. I know next week we'll have some other people who have a different experience, but it's all related. It's all related about this as I call it, this perfect imperfect journey, this that we're on in terms of democracy, and we're at this moment in time. I just Anthony and I, we just got off a call with the lieutenant governor in Michigan, and we talked about it being an advancement, a potential advancement, a time for a potential advancement, a time to kind of get to that more perfect union that we're founded on. So this is a great moment, and I think I really thankful for everybody here to kind of voice that. I think that that's one of the things that we need to do as leaders is provide the opportunity so that not only are we listening, but we actually are hearing what's being said. So Tina, thanks for sharing that. Ricky, give us a little bit of an idea of one of the things that we want to is important to you in terms of the Pride Month and the activities that surround that. Certainly give a perspective on this year, but also in years past and too.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to piggyback what you said in regards to hearing from our community. I think that is a huge thing that we as a whole should do right now. Right now, our community, especially our LGBTQIA+ community of color, are hurting. We are in pain. We're tired. We're sick of being pushed in the back, and we really, really want to jump to the front of the line, and we really want to scream from the rooftops and let you all know that we are here and we are valid members of our community, and we want to make a difference, and we want to be there for our siblings, and we want to fight this battle. We want to figure out a way to come to a happy place to where our siblings are not being murdered, or to where we as queer individuals, for example, me, I identify as a gay male. I want to get to a place where I can leave work at 4 in the morning and not have to wonder if I am gonna walk into some type of trouble going to my car, or if my siblings who have worked with me are going to be safe going to their cars.
Yep.
In regards to the Pride celebration and how I think that we are all handling it, and what I see from my perspective is that I see a whole lot of support amongst my peers. I see a lot of pain again. I see a lot of expression. I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we can understand and listen and comprehend and validate as we're getting to these conversations, and we are starting to make a difference, because a huge part of making a difference is understanding and validating what we are saying and actually comprehending what is being put forward. In terms of the previous prides, Pride is like our Christmas. Pride is our Christmas. It is the most magical month. It is, and I say month because it's not just the third weekend in June for Pride. It's all over the world in this entire month, and some Pride spread for months on end. And we receive so much love and support and praise for everything we do. We just want that to continue every day. Maybe not in a party, but we want that love and support to continue every day. And that's why I'm here. Yeah. I'm here to be a voice.
Yeah, and Ricky, I think that we're getting some people that are sharing. When I kind of run through Billy and then Anthony, I might take myself off the screen and put Ben on. He has a couple comments and questions I think he'd like to share with you. We only keep 6 people on the screen at a time, so I don't mind going to backstage for a few minutes. But yeah, I think having a month time frame when you can highlight should carry over year round, right? That's the point of it. Absolutely. It's not just to kind of say, oh, this is important today, but it's not important tomorrow. It gives you, as you just said very well, it gives you an opportunity to express it in a way where there's that it's highlighted, but at that point in time, if it's delivered properly, it should live the whole year, as some of the people who are watching this are not only are actually expressing, and I think that's one of the good things, one of the positive things about a month or about an activity that is very positive. It gives you a voice. It gives a voice to many of us to make sure that we're hearing that. So having that highlight is important, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. Is you've shifted into the, as Tina and Ray have said, and Ricky, into an appropriate place in terms of the Black Lives Matters issues and all the implications that surround that. I think you made a great, the most important move that you could make. But we also want to make sure that people know that the Pride celebration is around, and it's going to be there, and it's continuing to be there on a year-round basis. And it'll be back here next year when we're a little back more to normal, and hopefully we're in a better spot, as we're making this journey on what this democracy is supposed to be all about. Billy, give us a little overview of what your thoughts are on Pride Month, but also, reflect a little bit about, what we're going through right now and how that's impacted you and your loved ones and the people that are in your life.
Absolutely. I think for me, one of the hardest things has been being a white man of privilege. And I know that, and I see that, and I own that. And how do I help in this situation? When you watch the George Floyd video, it's incorrigible. There's no reason for it whatsoever that occurred. And then, we lost 2 trans women of color just shortly after that. And it just, how do I help? And so that's what I keep asking myself and asking my friends of color, like, what can I do? Sometimes those of us can push our way to the front of the line. So we have to step up and help amplify those voices, but we can't take the space. We have to be able to allow that space for the people that are doing the work. That I think of my Councilwoman Mary Kay Harris and Councilwoman Nerva LaFortune and the Council President Sabina Matos, who are all on the front lines fighting every day, fighting racism, fighting it. They get hit every which way but sideways because of the color of their skin, perhaps how they speak. And as a white man, it's very frustrating, but it's even harder as a gay white man because I don't know what I can do to help. And I think that's been one of the largest issues that I've been dealing with over the past month. And it's been devastating because there doesn't seem to be much to be prideful for. But back to Ray's point, when Title VII passed, that was a moment that if I was a betting man, I would have bet that would have sailed, and it wasn't going to happen. So
Billy, share with you. I should have asked Ray that, but share what the Title VII was.
Well, Title VII codified that LGBTQIA people have rights in the workplace. We can't be fired for being gay. And that's a big thing. People don't realize that. I once had a boss try to not give me a raise because I was gay and she was Christian. And so I demanded my raise. I got my raise. It was a bonus. And then I gave that bonus to Amfar in her name. But those things, those little aggressions happen all the time. The city council just had a public hearing that was virtual that went off the rails with hate speech. And in the chat, I was singled out because I was moderating it and they kept calling me the F word. And normally words don't hurt me. I understand for other people it does, but for me, it's just never bothered me. I've lived with it my whole life. Maybe I've become too complacent. But finally, after 41 times in a row, it just got too much. And I came into the house and I didn't realize that I wasn't on mute. And I said to my husband, I've just been called this 41 times. And it was expletives because it was a swear word and the other word. And I didn't realize I wasn't on mute. And the next day I had someone say to me, you need to be mindful of what you say when you're not on mute. And I thought, wow, that was really like sort of an insensitive moment that you didn't comprehend that I was taking that vitriol for you.
Really, maybe that individual should have, if he was in your company, maybe on the second or third time, they should have said, cut it out.
Yeah. It was an important meeting because they were trying to get the tax levy passed, and finally it just had to end. and we had to reschedule, and we just did it in a really impressive way. It went on for 9 hours, and we heard from lots of people about what their views are for the future of Providence. And it's an exciting time to see change. And I think this is the time that change can happen, because we are in a moment that is going to cause a movement. And the movement is coming not from my generation. It's coming from the young kids. It's coming from high schoolers. It is coming from people that are marginalized and fed up, but realize that, hey, we have a voice and we can get together, and they're making it happen. It's been one of the most impressive and rewarding things that I've seen as a grown man, to see these young people mobilize in a way that has been completely beautiful and moving, and really expressing their pain and grief in a way that is beautiful and appropriate. So, but for me, pride is all the time. I'm a gay man. I have a husband. I have 2 dogs. You know, I walk down the street. The only way you don't know I'm gay is if I stand perfectly still and don't speak. So I'm very prideful, and I know who I am.
Yeah, well, and thank you for being here, Billy, and the work you do, and sharing that story as well. It just is, again, I don't walk in your shoes. I only know, when somebody says that, geez, they understand what I'm going through, I want to shake them and say, no, you really don't. I like the idea that you try to understand, and so, that's where my perspective on things. But I've said this many times as we're having these broadcasts, and we're going to continue to have these, these issues that you just talked about in terms of equity issues, equality issues, and everything that's related to it, and certainly the backdrop of the George Floyd, murder in Minneapolis, has propelled this discussion in a way that hopefully we, take advantage of that tragedy. And I keep on saying, as to people who are, continue this, when don't equivocate in this time frame. Can you say yes, Black Lives Matter without saying another word, right? Can you say yes, Black Lives Matter without saying another word? Because we always hear the equivocation, but all lives matter. Well, of course they do, but can you say yes, Black Lives Matter without saying another word? And I think that the people who have difficulty doing that, those are the people that were calling you out in a way that was not right. And that's, I think that we need to flush those individuals out, because if they can't simply say that and stop in this time frame, then they're exposing themselves as part of the problem, right? And it's good to do that, and maybe they learn, right? Maybe as they're exposed, maybe they learn that they should be, speaking out. As I just said, if I was running a council meeting and I was a mayor and I was on the town council, and if that stuff was going on during that period of time, I would not have been silent on that. And hopefully somebody did speak up. And if they didn't, they should have. And they did. They did.
The chairman spoke up. He actually, and to quantify that, the chairman had no idea what was going on in the chat. And the next day, he did an interview, and someone told him about the chat and what was said about me. And he called me at 7:30 in the morning to tell me how sorry he was and how that didn't define who I was.
Yes.
And I was like, thank you. I know, but it was hurtful when it happened. But they did. Several counselors spoke up, and it was a hard choice to make from a standpoint, because in government you have to get the tax levy passed. So we were trying to get the tax levy passed.
I know that. Get the bills out.
So you got to. So trying to make the choice: do we soldier through and just mute the hate? But we were just overpowered. It was a different system than we had used before, and we learned from it and we pivoted. And our team did a fantastic job at a public hearing that lasted 9 hours.
Yeah.
And everyone got their chance to speak.
Well, Billy, thank you for sharing. And I just want to let you know some of the comments tonight are very positive, none negative. Nothing that we would call somebody out on. In fact, very positive, your leadership. So thank you for providing that. Anthony, you kind of get the last word here in terms of like what the RI Pride Month means to you. And we're certainly going to revisit back. And if there's anybody else that has something really on their mind that wants to share in, we won't cut you off, but we're going to get to the next segment within the next few minutes. But Anthony, tell us a little bit about, what the RI Pride Month means to you, and also what it means to you in the current circumstances that we are all, living with at the moment.
Sure. So, like everyone else here, other than yourself, Lieutenant Governor, we are all from not Rhode Island. I'm originally from California, but I moved to Massachusetts when I was quite young, and then moved to Rhode Island about 8 years ago. And I always thought Pride to be a month of family. It's kind of like the best family reunion ever, because you meet so many people. Like in my life, and anyone who works in organizations or clubs, you meet so many people over the year, and then all of a sudden it's like one big family gathering, and you see everyone, and you get to hug and celebrate and dance and just be silly and just enjoy each other's company. And that has certainly changed this year. And just to kind of everyone made so many great points, Tina and Ray and Billy and Ricky. This is a point where the gay community right now is in pain, and I am very fortunate. Yes, I am privileged for who I am and the color of my skin, and that I can't stand and say, well, this has happened to me and I can't say that. And for me to talk about issues that doesn't really affect me would be disingenuous. But what I can do is that I can sit back, I can listen, I can be educated, and I can do the best that I can to offer my allyship and think, well, what can I do to help? How can I use whatever platforms I have available, whether it's my platform here at the Democratic Party and trying to push issues through the platform or through our Democratic leaders, or as a drag queen, how can I make things like that happen? Being a drag performer, you get a soapbox. They give you a stage and a microphone, and you can do a lot with it. It's a powerful tool, but you got to use it right. You got to use that tool. It's a powerful tool, but only if you use it for the power of good and for the power of making a real, true difference. So I know for me, I want to be able to work with people like Ricky, who I've known. We've worked together for the past number of years, and Tina and Ray, I've known forever and a day, to do that. But also with someone like you, Lieutenant Governor, how do we heal not only the gay community, but the entire thing? This is a long road ahead of us. But it's sad because Black Lives Matter, and they truly do. And like you said, if you can't say that, there's something wrong with you, because if you can't see the pain that's going on, if you can't turn on your TV, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or Fox, and see the pain that's happening from coast to coast, and you can't say that, and you can just say, oh, well, it doesn't make a difference, there's something truly inhumane with you. And so we're going to do everything we can, and the strong leaders that I know we have out there, to hopefully make a real difference here in Rhode Island. And you know what? If it's going to start here, let's start with Rhode Island. We'll take this energy, we'll spread it across all 50 states if we have to. But I think this is, I commend everyone here, because you guys have been on, Tina and Ray certainly have been on the front lines, Billy, friends in government, and Ricky, just someone sharing their story, a story that I know when I heard it on Saturday, it certainly was something that really kind of shook me inside. So thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. I say, Anthony, from my perspective, sitting and walking and participating, I always go where I'm invited, and I thank everybody for the invitation to actually participate. You do get a sense of family. And well, the other thing that I see there is that, but it also is it brings a cross section of different communities in the state of Rhode Island to one spot. So it's not all the LGBTQ community that comes out and celebrates. And I think that's a tribute to everyone that's involved with putting that celebration together. And it is a reflection that that there are people, as was mentioned before, that there are people that are going to move this thing forward, right? And they're going to, as I've said, this we have this imperfect perfect journey that we're on, and this is part of our challenge, right? Part of our challenge is to make it perfect, and we have to admit where it's not perfect, and we need to make sure that we use those opportunities to move us further and further along. That, again, that's my perspective. Again, I don't stand in your shoes, but we stand here to try to find a way to let your voices be heard and actually do something about it, right? To actually to make sure that our communities. I have a theme to our office that's been the number 39, and it's very simple. There's 39 cities and towns in the state of Rhode Island. That in every community is important, and all the communities that make up the communities are important. And so to have you here tonight to talk about Pride Month, the LGBTQ community is represents one of those communities that makes up our communities, makes up the whole, and everyone is important. So thank you all for being here tonight. I really do appreciate your time. We'll be following up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Yep. Great. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, that's a powerful message that we have. Tina, you're still here. You would like to say a few more words? Happy to have you. It was very powerful, and that's what we wanted to do. And isn't it interesting that there was a shift there in that community in terms of the Pride Month, where they saw a need and they filled it on the food drive. They saw a need that shifted into supporting their family in a way in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement. I imagine many people in the LGBTQ community were walking in that protest, that as I did a few weeks back, and I'm trying to listen and trying to hear, and that's what we all need to do. So if you need to connect in with the Pride Month for any way, any reason, call our office, 222-2371. We'd be happy to share the information back to you. So if you heard anything tonight that struck your interest and you wanted to help or you wanted to participate in any way, let us know, and we'll pass the information along. So the balance of the show, I want to just set this up. It's a shift. Thank you, Michael. And it's a shift in terms of thinking, but it is all in the same package. I do believe that all 39 cities and towns are important. The communities that make up those communities are important. And if anyone is out of kilter, if anyone is struggling, then our whole, in terms of the state of Rhode Island, gets impacted. Right now, our small businesses are being impacted as well, as many other areas that you just heard about. The COVID-19 is just basically exposed a lot of these issues. Small business friendliness in Rhode Island has been low. And as a result, our economy is not as good as it can be. And people are not earning as much as they could earn. And there are specific things that we want to talk about tonight. So can we bring on our other guest, Ben? I believe that Nancy's here. Oh yeah, good, Nancy's here, good. And I see Justin and I see Chris. Thank you all for being here tonight. This is a conversation that we're going to continue. There's many important conversations that go on. I happen to believe that we can keep more than one ball in the air. That we actually can walk and chew gum at the same time, and that we don't have to, have one issue take a back seat when we have several issues that belong in the front seat. And that's my belief. I believe that that's true because I think they're all interconnected. So I wanted to just set the table, for Chris and Justin and Nancy to talk about. I was able to visit Nancy's business down in Jamestown, beautiful area of the state, daycare center. We were very impacted by the COVID-19, unable to open up for several weeks, no revenue coming in, trying to manage it. As many other daycare facilities in the state of Rhode Island. Justin's here. Justin was the person that kind of first responded to my ask of, does anybody want to help figure this out for our small businesses? Justin called right away. We got an rismallbusiness.org started, and not, just a few days after we got that up and running, Chris came on board along with Lori Jatari to actually try to highlight our small businesses. And Justin, real quickly, just tell us where we are on that site. I want to go to Chris, and then I want to go to Nancy on a perspective in particular, as a business owner, another business owner state. But just give an overview about the rismallbusiness.org. I also preface this by saying, look, we're transitioning. That's what we're going to talk about for the next 10 to 15 minutes, is we're transitioning into an idea that is developed through the seed that Justin planted a few months back, about organizing small businesses in the state of Rhode Island in a way that they've never been organized before. Create a common sense declaration that to really put down grievances in terms of how small businesses are being treated in the state of Rhode Island. I'll talk about that in a second, but and also to put down our statement in terms of the fact that we're demanding that we're a more small business friendly state. This is the time to do it. So it's time to demand a small, more small business friendly state. That's the message that we want to deliver tonight. So Justin, give us a little quick overview where we are on, from your perspective. I'll go to Chris and then we'll end up with Nancy. But this is our opportunity to really ask people to, to get involved. And so the floor is yours, Justin. Thank you so much for all the help that you've given.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly been an honor, and man, I can't believe it's been a few months. Yeah. Seems like a few days. But yeah, the site itself is, we've really shifted it from that whole gift card movement and getting the businesses money to giving the businesses a voice. I know Chris and I were talking a little bit earlier, and a lot on these calls that we've had during the weeks. These small businesses, we have a voice. It's time for us to step up to make our our demands. There's a ton of CARES Act funding money that's out there right now. And we've really seen a position in Rhode Island where we've taken a step back to get some of that money and get some of that funding. So now it's, the site, again, it's rismallbusiness.org. It's time for you to go on, get your business involved with this site so that we can start coming together as a coalition and a community of small businesses, to get, I guess, almost what is rightfully ours type of thing, and really make some change. As you just said, we don't have a great small business friendly state. And it's crazy to me because the state is made up of, small businesses. Yeah. It's shocking and dumbfounding. And every time I hear the words, come right from you of how we've made such a stride to get this going and how hard it was to get that going previous to this is, it makes me take a second to, step back and really look at the bigger picture of what we've done. And, I think that's where I'll kind of shift and segue to Chris. His team has really done a great job bringing us to that new level.
And Justin, we're approaching 1,500 businesses on that, plus what Lori's added to it, probably close to 2,000 businesses. Now, how do we organize that in a way to give us voice? But to your point about the COVID-19 federal money, the state did receive, for those who are hearing it for the first time, and this is not the first time coming out of my mouth, but $1.25 billion. The guidelines of that allows money to be appropriated to help small business who were forced to close to keep us healthy. And yet very little of those dollars, of any, have come actually out. But now we're hearing New Hampshire's put $400 million out to help their small businesses. Pennsylvania, $225 million. Mississippi, over $200 million. The state of Alaska, close to $300 million. And yet at this point in time, we're kind of at 0.0. And that's why one of the, the immediate things that I think that we need to demand as small businesses, and we need to let our elected officials know this is not acceptable. And you're going to hear from Nancy very shortly of exactly why it's not acceptable. She represents a business that is, her business is down by 30, 40, 50% after coming off several weeks without any revenue. And yet we're sitting here not doing what our other states are doing. So Justin, thank you. Chris, please weigh in.
It's time to organize as small businesses. We really got to come together to demand, what we need. So as the Lieutenant Governor, as Justin, as everyone's saying, go to rismallbusiness.org right now and click the button that says join the coalition. The only way that we're going to get these demands is if it not just comes from one elected official like Lieutenant Governor, or it comes from one small business, is if it comes from the thousands of small businesses behind us. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to listen to you. So we want to make sure that we're representative of all communities, of all neighborhoods, of all types of small businesses. So we're going to send an email out As long as you register, you'll get the email. And that way we can hear from you to see what you feel that we need in order to better your small business here in Rhode Island. Then Lieutenant Governor's office, next week, we're going to organize that and slim it down to create an organized demand list, right? Some common sense requests that we need in order to survive and thrive as small businesses. And when we do that, we need to get some sweat equity with all of our small businesses, and we need to help push this forward, make it into a spotlight, and help make sure that this becomes a reality, because there's two phases with it. Number one, it's immediate. Just as Nancy's going to show and many other small businesses, we're small business owners, we need help now. And that's going to be through that $1.25 billion that other states are already shown that they care about their small businesses. So we need help with that right away. But also, we're not a small business friendly state. It's very clear. And what we want to do is also think about the long term, make sure that we have sustainable change. So we're going to create lists, create these demands. We're going to have all of our small business community get behind it. Every single type of community. We need to hear from you of what you want. Then we need to have you push this agenda with us to ensure that our voices are heard and that our demands are met.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I couldn't have said it better, to tell you the truth. And it's going to come from that sweat equity that you talked about. Anything worth having is worth working for. And
exactly.
And that's what we, that's what our goal is. And I only can do this because of people like Nancy and Justin and yourself. But it's long overdue. And I've always believed in, as a mayor, and working for 12 years as a mayor in the town of Cumberland and passing budgets, and our budgets always reflected our priorities, and the way that we allocate money reflect our priorities. And small businesses, it's not just the small business owners, the people who work in the families that rely on those small businesses. It's the communities that rely on those revenues to balance their budgets, to provide public safety protection and street cleaning and picking up the trash. And those things don't happen unless there's a viable small business community in every community in the state of Rhode Island. It doesn't happen. So we need to connect those dots. And then I know that I've talked to several businesses, Chris, since we've been starting to talk about this publicly, and they're on board. And small businesses can't exist. And I'm going to go to Nancy because I want to make sure she gets the thought process here. Small businesses do not exist unless they have goodwill built up with their customers and with the people that are working with them. So I think that not only is it to the best interest of the small businesses and the families that work with them, but it's also the people who do business with them, right? To step up right now and do it in a way that that helps. Nancy, give us a little overview. I got to visit you, and thank you for having the media there and having the Jamestown media there and reflecting that, and that's exactly what we need to do. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you. I don't know where to start. I have so much I want to talk about.
You got all the time you want. Go ahead.
No. First of all, I wear many hats, as you know, and the councilwoman in me wants to plug Jamestown for a minute, because we are one of 16 towns in Rhode Island that still have a financial town meeting every year. And I think I joked about it the last meeting. I had to leave to go to that meeting, and I just want to say it was in a ball field at the school, at the elementary school, and it was wonderful. It was amazing, and I felt like I was part of history. I just can't say enough about it in my town and our administration. But anyway, so I do that, and I've also owned the daycare for 25 years. And I'm also the president of the Business Owners and Child Care Association of Rhode Island. It was developed in 2011 for networking, basically. In 2013, the state changed regulations for child care centers. And what that meant for a lot of us is they came in and they reduced the amount of children we could have. In my case, it was about half. So after 18 years of owning my business, they then basically said that it was worth half of what it normally was. So anyway, we reactivated BOCA, and we fought. And in 2017 they changed the regulations. I got my numbers back, and the rest is history. So I understand the importance about joining together, like Chris was saying, and rallying the troops, so to speak, so they'll listen to you. And I know this isn't supposed to be industry specific, but I just want to say that my industry, it's difficult. Most people feel pretty ambivalent about it, and we're just babysitters. And I think people still think of us that way. But Governor, you know, I gave you a chart on the regulations that we have to abide by to be in this industry, and it's just not. It's not easy to meet all of these requirements and all of these regulatory agencies that we have to meet. And I'm meeting with our licensing body tomorrow, and I'm going to ask them to try to loosen up on some of the regulations just for this period, because nothing that affects health or safety, but just some of the silliness. And talking to the other business owners in Jamestown, as you know, it's not a one size fits all. What I need maybe is I need more staff desperately to follow all the regulations that they've given us for the COVID-19 period. But my retail business owners need customers, and they need parking spaces. So we just, as a town, we decided to rent an empty lot from a private business owner in town so that we can open it up for parking for our businesses. Because we gave them our municipal parking lot to put outdoor seating for the restaurants, and now there's no place to park. So the town is actually gonna rent a space so that people can park, so that they can go to the restaurants and the shops. So again, I'm really proud of Jamestown. But what I have found, like I said, is everybody needs something different, but all of our voices need to be heard for sure. And
yeah, and that's what we're gonna try to do. But again, Nancy, thank you for sharing that. And as a municipal leader, you also wear that hat that says that you got to balance these things. And close your eyes. What would your budget look like if you had no small businesses in your community?
Correct. And right now, as I think I mentioned to you when you visited, in our industry alone in Rhode Island, only 66% of the licensed childcare providers applied to reopen. I know personally of several centers that are closed permanently now. And I think that there was another study done, and approximately, let's see, of course I can't find it now. Well, 1/2 of the licensed childcare providers in the United States are at risk right now of disappearing because of the COVID. Just so you know, but I mean, that's crazy. It's huge.
Yeah, and that's why I go back to the federal dollars. I mean, a state like Wisconsin is going to try to distribute, which is relatively small dollars, but it's $2,500 to 30,000 small businesses. That's how they're going to distribute it. At least everybody gets a little piece. Right. And then other states are doing it a little bit differently, where they set a threshold up to as much as 100,000, from 500 to 100, $5,000 to $100,000 as they distribute their 300 million. That's the first order of a business right now, as far as I'm concerned. It's sitting there, it's being expended, it's being allocated, and it's going to be gone unless we make some noise. And so I think that's one of our first grievances. We'll have a staff meeting tomorrow for our office. We're having a staff meeting every morning at 9 o'clock in this virtual way to make sure that we're all, working and trying to do our best to help the areas that we're responsible for, which includes the small businesses. I chair the Small Business Advocacy Council. And one of the things that we're going to do, and I'd ask you to do the same thing, because we're going to be getting back to you. Our staff will be getting back to everybody that we have met, because we're going to try to coordinate a list of all the different entities that we have had networking with, not over just the last 10 weeks or 12 weeks, but also over the last 5 years. As you know, I do these 39 tours, and I've done one in manufacturing, one in every community, a farm in every community, a used car deal in every community. We've been at a restaurant in every community. We're in the middle of an art tour, art-related tour when the COVID hit. In addition to going to the municipal leaders, on an annual basis in every community. So we're going to be reaching out, and we're going to try to put together. And it's great, Nancy, you represent the daycare. We want you there. We want, Marianne Showcross there. We want that there. We want them to be really advocating for their things. When we set our grievances out, we want to hear what those grievances are so that we can list those. And then when we actually put that all together, we're going to be asking daycare centers to support the hair salons, and the hair salons support the restaurants, and that's how it's going to work. And people who are in, Justin, in terms of the different types of promotion and the different type of consulting that Chris does, we should be supporting them too. But we need to know your story in order to list those grievances out so they matter to you, and then share that across a group of different types of business owners, and advocate to kind of be like pushing everybody in the same direction. So my first step is get several hundred million, a couple $100 million out of those CARE dollars, and do a math formula, figure out how to allocate those dollars equitably, and then anybody who applies gets a piece of that pie, and at least everybody's helped, and that would move small business friendliness open, because all of a sudden then the small business community say, well, they cared. They didn't have $1 billion, but they had 100 million, and they distributed that. And that's how you're going to build small business friendliness. People have to care. And I'm looking forward to coming back and share with you some of the things that I think that we have on resources that can help everybody get this forward. We're partnering with a national group right now that has a American small business plan that I think is very, very solid. And we're going to share that out. And I think it's going to be a template as well as to add to this. What are we going to call it, Chris? Do you have any idea how we're going to call this thing yet? Some sort of a common sense declaration or something?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it. But it's definitely a declaration, and we're definitely demanding because we need it, or else we just simply won't survive. It's very basic, and that's kind of what we're going with when it says it's common sense. It's common sense. We need it. We have the money. We need it.
Yeah. It's there. And I was talking to a manufacturer yesterday. His business is down 65%. And yet when we hear the governor speak and Commerce speak, they are acting like that we're back to, business as usual, that we're in, that we're not. And that's what, the small business, we need to organize to really get our, to make sure that our voices are heard. So with your help, we're going to make it happen. So we're kind of going to sign off right now, but we'll be in contact. Nancy, thank you for being here and sharing. Thank you for
having me, and thank you, Governor, for all you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
you for doing a minute.
And you and Chris and Justin too. Thanks.
Yeah, Justin, thank you. This is going to be one of those private victories that we have. That we started something from scratch, and then our idea is to make sure that this effort continues. And I still got another 2.5 years as Lieutenant Governor. So we got some time to really, make that a mainstay of this office, so that the next Lieutenant Governor that follows me can really, take it on, just as I have done on other projects that Charlie Fogarty has left me, or any other of the Lieutenant Governors. We embrace those things that had to do with veterans and other things. Let's put something together that will live on past the time I'm there. But I'll pledge my time, anything I can do to make it happen, and to work with you and Chris and Justin and anybody else that wants to be involved. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
You got it.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Well, there you have it. If you heard something there that if you're involved in a small business, or you work at a small business that potentially could close because of this COVID-19 health crisis, which is causing an economic crisis. If you want to hear more about how you could be involved to do, have Rhode Island follow Alaska or New Hampshire and put out, hundreds of millions of dollars to help these small businesses, this is the time to do it. We ask you to call our office at 222-2371. And of course, anything that has to do with, the first part of our show with the LGBTQ community and Pride Month, if anything that, you want to follow up on, please give us a call. In the meantime, we'll be back on Tuesday for a small business call, and then next week we'll be back here talking about some of the most important issues that we're facing right now as a state of Rhode Island. I appreciate everybody who's listening in, everybody who's kind of clicking on after the show is over. We're on our website. You can go to that and on any of our programs. And please stay involved, stay healthy, and support the LGBTQ community and support our small businesses too. Thank you so much. Good night.